Welcome back. It is Sunday, March 5th. Just got done watching my beloved F1 team, Mercedes, lose to start this morning. Now we've got the Mavs Suns game on in the background. It's halftime right now, so we may have some breaks because I'm really kind of hooked on this game. It's a close game at half. We're going to talk about it, I think, at the end because I'm going to want to talk about it because the Suns team is fascinating and I haven't gotten to speak on them yet. But it's a great Sunday. We've got the birds chirping in the background, which, while it is aesthetically pleasing to me and my ears, I'm going to have to work overtime to make sure it doesn't come through on the podcast. Unless that's something that y'all are into. If y'all are into the birds chirping, let me know. I'll keep it up. Anyways, this is episode 7 of what is officially the Restricted Area Podcast. I am your host, Spencer Galloway. If you didn't know that already, thank you for joining me. Thank you for giving me your time this week. We're going to talk some basketball today, if you didn't know. If you didn't know, we're going to talk some basketball today. That being said, this is episode 7, and I'm learning. Learning, one, that there is support for this show. And I'm kind of blown away. We have hit a listener threshold, not going to say, but hit one that has impressed me. Okay, I am impressed by y'all's by the fact y'all are clicking on the show and sticking around and listening. Now, you wouldn't know that if you looked at the YouTube channel. I think there's only a handful of views on there. I don't know if y'all know about the YouTube channel. It's really just the video form of this podcast. And if you're already watching on Spotify, then so be it. But if you're also into like a bite-sized version of the podcast, there's also clips up there as well. You know, we condense it into some 5-10 minute clips for you to digest in case you're not really a road warrior and want to listen to a entire hour-long show. That all being said, I'm learning, and something I've learned is you can't get to everything, okay? I want to talk about everything. I just can't, though, unless I do a podcast either like 3 to 5 times a week. I'm just not going to get to everything. And an example is Damian Lillard's 70-point game that happened last week, right? Awesome. Sounds cool. Looked great. Didn't get to it. And I'm not going to talk about it today because one, it's old news, but two, I mean, there's probably a number of reasons why it's not necessarily relevant to the overarching NBA narrative right now. But just not going to get to that. Another thing, Milwaukee's streak, the 16-game win streak. It's just not going to happen. The streak is over. Before I ever got to talk about it, the streak came to an end. And then, of course, just being a Celtics fan, I just feel like the incessant need to talk about every single Celtics game, which I'm just not going to. That being said, we do play New York tonight, play the Knicks after our pretty embarrassing, but also not that big of a deal loss to Brooklyn. We're going to get the Knicks tonight. The Knicks are on a 6-game win streak. We are part of that win streak, being that they beat us the last time we met. And these Knicks Celtics matchups have been fun. They've been fun. I got to be honest. They've been fun. The Knicks play us well, and it's a team that doesn't really put a lot of fear in me, but also a team that could. I don't think anybody's like excited to play the Knicks in the playoffs. Right? They're coming together at a good time. Brunson has been on fire for a while, and I don't think it's a team that anybody's going to want to play. It's just not. It's just not a team that anybody's going to want to play. All that out of the way. Some things that we are going to cover. We're going to talk about Sixers-Bucks. That game was awesome. It was indicative of what we're going to see in a potential and likely playoff series. I think it's very likely that these two match up. And that's good. That's good for me because I want these two teams to beat up on one another before we have to face one of them in the conference finals. If you ask me today who I'd rather see, it's going to be Philly, but I feel comfortable with either. But that's just me. That's just my bias bleeding through as a Celtics fan. We're going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about Russell Westbrook. Okay, I know it's frowned upon to speak about Russell Westbrook unless you're lauding his praises and giving him his metaphorical flowers. And I like Westbrook, but it's no secret that the Clippers are not doing so hot. I mean, I'm going to put it lightly, they're just not playing very well at all since acquiring Westbrook, and they're 0-5. And I think there was this idea that they were going to get him and he was going to maybe give them a little bit of juice, maybe just revitalize some things, maybe just, if nothing more, provide a little bit of on-the-ball relief for the two leading men in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. However, I'm not seeing it, and I think they may come to regret this decision if they aren't already. And there's one pretty obvious and pretty glaring number that I want to talk about. We're going to get to that. Obviously, the most devastating news of the week is Ja Morant has been suspended for a minimum of 2 games, and it's likely going to be more that he misses, whether that's self-inflicted or imposed by the league or by the Grizzlies. It's yet to be seen. But hey, man, it's nothing I want to talk about. I'm like a part-time Ja Morant hater. Like, and it's never serious, and I don't really like to bash any one guy in particular too much, but I just don't take him seriously, right? I just haven't really taken him seriously before. He's an incredible talent, one of the most, if not the most athletic point guard in the history of the NBA. He makes jaw-dropping plays. He's one of the most transcendent talents that we have in today's game, and so it's a shame that, everything that's going on with him. Plus, there's just some other Grizzly stuff as a whole. The loss to the number 1 seeded Denver Nuggets the other night, and then of course that was just hours before the event that led to Ja Morant's kind of current situation. So we're going to get to it. We're going to unpack all of it. Going to go ahead and take a quick break before we unpack this Sixers-Bucks game. And then we're going to get into all of this other fun stuff. All right. So 76ers, Bucks. Bucks are at home Saturday night. ESPN, NBA on ABC. There's not much more you could have wanted from this game. There's just not. And it's just a great game. It was just an incredible game to check into at really at any point. These teams shot the piss out of the ball. Okay. They both shot over 50% from the field, almost over 50% from 3, and they were both over 80% from the line. It was just incredible. It just had such great flow to it. There was just a ton of offense. You had superstar play at a high level. You had it was combative. It was physical. 2 of maybe the most physical and most difficult to officiate players in the NBA. I ranted about the difficulty in 1, playing against, 2, being a fan of a team that's playing against, and watching officials try to officiate Joel Embiid when the Celtics played the Sixers last week. And Giannis is right there in that realm. Giannis is kind of like the leader of the tough to officiate group. And so to have those 2 guys kind of squaring off, it was incredible. It was like 2 King Kongs just battling it out, tons of physicality. And it came into play when they were defending one another. Think about that call that could have gone either way, the block or charge, when it's in the 4th quarter, game's winding down. Giannis just bullies his way into Embiid. Embiid falls over. Embiid's up in arms about, he ran me over. And it's true, he did, but also, it's a call that could have gone either way. And there's tons of that stuff all night. Both of those guys habitually live at the free throw line. And if we're playing against those guys, it's really frustrating. But watching this game, you could tell those two are just absolute beasts, physical specimens. Obviously, both of them are in the MVP conversation. But you think about this Bucks win streak. They come into this game winning 16 straight. Some of those without Giannis, right? They get Giannis back. They have Middleton back. Drew Holiday is playing at maybe the highest level he's ever played at. Just made the All-Star team over James Harden. So when we think about James Harden going absolutely out of his mind last night, we have to think about maybe some ulterior motives and maybe the fact that maybe a little fired up that Drew Holiday made the All-Star team over James Harden. To Holiday's credit, he has played very good basketball lately. My biggest takeaway from this game is that this was a huge win for Philly, right? Philly shows incredible poise, and that's something that they've struggled with. I think this team, since the construction of the Embiid, Harden, Sixers teams, I think they've struggled with identity, and I think they've struggled with poise. Just showing that they can tough out a difficult game. And they did that. And they did that through a Grayson Allen 20-point third quarter. He erupted. The drive and kick stuff for Milwaukee when I'm watching this is just off the charts. When you have Brook Lopez, a 7-foot center, able to get the step on his defender, drive it into the lane, and then kick out to his choice of either Drew Holiday or Grayson Allen on the wings, wide open, that's a problem. That's a problem for other teams. And Philly, give them credit. They adjusted. They found a way to slow them down. Those were the last points that Grayson Allen scored. And scoring for Milwaukee was just a lot harder. Points were a lot harder to come by for them in the fourth quarter. Give Philly a ton of credit because they won this game without Tobias Harris. They won this game without PJ Tucker. Those are kind of their two most consistent wing guys. And give Jalen McDaniels a ton of credit because he shows up and now he's relied on heavily in this game. He's relied on a ton in this game because of the absence of those two. And I love what I saw from McDaniels. His defense down the stretch, he was locked in. He had clutch free throws and a clutch bucket. He was part of that group that just showed tremendous poise, and he wasn't backing down. He wasn't afraid of this matchup. And this is probably the biggest game that Jalen McDaniels has ever played in his life. I talked about it a little bit when they played Boston, but he's coming from Charlotte where he's just never going to have to play really any meaningful minutes. And then now he's catapulted into this new stratosphere of basketball that he's never been a part of. And that's just high level competitive playoff atmosphere basketball. And he was excellent. He was excellent. And it looks like that was a really good trade for Philly. Still not really sure why Charlotte decided to move off of a really good young player who was cheap. Just not sure. Anyway, James Harden is my personal story of the night. Everybody knows he is my favorite non-Celtic. I just love James Harden. He's not talked about enough as one of the greatest scorers of all time, one of the greatest isolation players of all time, just a fabulous player. And he showed it last night. And I don't like this idea that last night was a vintage performance for James Harden. We think James Harden is like a prehistoric fossil that was dug up and showed up last night. That's just not the case. I know he didn't make the All-Star team this year. I know, he's kind of been bogged down by whether it's the hamstring or other injuries the past couple of years. But I think the biggest thing with Harden is that the burst kind of comes and goes. And, I still think he's capable of playing like that most nights. Maybe not 2018 peak Harden where, he looked maybe a little bit lighter and maybe a little bit more athletic. But I think he's capable of taking 25 shots a night and making a ton of shots and leading an offense. the way he leads the offense now is still extremely impressive, and he has a league high 11 assists a game. He's excellent at, just getting the offense into its sets, getting it into a rhythm, and then finding the open guy. He's a tremendous playmaker. He's an extremely underrated passer. I think he's one of the league's best passers, if we're honest. I mean, you don't get to lead the league in assists without being a tremendous passer. So I loved every second from Harden. There was a point where he was not shooting the ball very well, but when you are missing PJ Tucker, but most notably Tobias Harris, who in that starting lineup, Tobias Harris is really the third option and really one of the only other guys who can create his own shot. And so when you're missing a guy like that, you kind of need Harden's shot creation, whether or not they're falling. You'd like to see them all go down, but he needs to be the one putting the pressure on the other team that, hey, I'm here. I'm going to take shots. I'm going to isolate. I'm going to put your guys in mismatches. And he did that. And he did that well. And at one point, the shots started to fall. Once they got into that fourth quarter, obviously in that last minute, he and Embiid hit the big threes to give them the lead. But Harden was just the story for me all night. Just fabulous. They won't talk about it because he didn't get the triple-double. He had 9 rebounds, so he's 1 rebound shy of the triple-double. So, they won't talk about it, but he really was excellent. So was Embiid. Embiid and Giannis. For them, it just goes without saying. It just goes without saying. There's a reason those guys are in the top 4 of the NBA MVP discussion. It just is. One of those guys could easily take this award. I know the MVP award thing has really heated up in the past week. I think there's now like a race thing with it, mostly sparked by ESPN's brightest shining star, Kendrick Perkins. But I'm not going to get into all that. That's just actually ridiculous. It actually just frustrates me thinking about it. But these two are just tremendous talents. And they showed why. But with Philly looking thin, they needed more, and they got more from Harden. I kind of feel like there's room for Harden to do this a lot more often. I know it looked great last night, but think about it. I don't really know at what point we decided Harden has to be a playmaking first all the time guy, because he kind of is that. But if you look around the league, especially, we got Phoenix and we got Dallas playing right now. Each of those 2 teams has 2 excellent all-star or all-world players, who are taking upwards of 20 shots a game, right? So this idea that Harden has to reel it all the way back. And I know he still averages like 22, 23 points a game, but I just think there's more room for Harden to dominate, and I know most nights you're not going to have somebody on the other side of the floor who can even hang with Embiid from a physical standpoint, from just a defensive standpoint. Nobody can really hang with him, right? And you want to attack those matchups. I get it. But in the minutes where Embiid is off the floor, Harden can keep this team in it. And we saw that last night. When Embiid hit the bench, Harden is what kept them in this game. And I know it sounds like I'm going on this huge Harden for president campaign, but really, just I think there's room for him to do more. And I think that ultimately, if they're going to get to the promised land, if they're going to make the conference finals, if they're going to win a conference finals, they're going to need more from James Harden. Because of how they were so thin, Georges Niang somehow ended up in the closing group. And I don't know why. I still feel like there's just no way he can do that. And then he ends up with a 5-second violation. And then Rivers, I guess that was enough for Doc Rivers to be like, hey, you're done. Thank God, because that just wasn't going to work. He did end up with 16 points. Don't get me wrong. The guy could shoot, sure. But I'm just not buying this idea that he should be in the closing group. That ties into my thing on Doc Rivers. I haven't shared it yet. I haven't shared my Doc Rivers thing yet, but just you wait. just an awesome game, and really, really do hope we get these two teams in the playoffs. Biggest takeaway was Philly finally showed tremendous poise. They played really good basketball together, and they survived basically anything and everything that Milwaukee could throw at them. Milwaukee threw everything, including the kitchen sink at Philly, and they were just outstanding. Enough said. I don't want to see either of these two teams in the playoffs, but obviously my beloved Celtics will have to face one of them at one point or another. We're going to take things out west. We're going to talk about the Clippers. A lot of guys, a lot of you all had the Clippers. I remember y'all had them as title favorites, or at least Western Conference favorites, and I remember that. Okay. And this team has taken a turn for the worst, and a lot of you know why, and we're going to get into that here in just a second. All right. Got a little scenario for you. Have you ever had a friend who meets a girl? He tells you all about her. She just seems perfect, right? Seems perfect for the guy. And then you get to know, you get to finding out who this girl is, and you say, "Oh, I know that girl." And why do you know that girl? You know that girl because she dated your other friend, and also before that dated another friend of yours, and before that dated another friend of yours, and all of those relationships ended poorly. And so you're telling the guy who's with her now, and you're saying, "Hey, good for you, man, but hey, I just want to issue a little warning to you. You know, she's kind of flaky, you know, or you know, whatever it may be. She's just not just keep an eye out, man. I don't know if you really want to lock this one down." And then he upends and marries her, right? That's kind of what's going on in LA with the Clippers and Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has now been a member of the Thunder, the Wizards, the Lakers. Oh, run that back. The Thunder, the Rockets. We missed the Rockets in that awesome era. The Wizards, the Lakers, and now the Clippers. The Thunder era was what it was. It was special. 2017 MVP, you know, can't look past it. It was incredible. And then he goes to Houston. Not really a noticeable drop-off. Just wasn't really, that just really didn't work out. Okay, whatever. Goes to Washington, playing with Bradley Beal. It's fine, but they're not really, they were never at any point that they were going to win, right? Okay. Well, the Lakers, they're striking out on everything, right? They're striking out. They need something. They need just spark. They need a little spark, okay? And LeBron says, "Hey, let's go get Russell Westbrook because he's fun and does a lot of stuff. And I need a guy like that who can dribble, who can get to the rim, who can score. I need a guy like that who can play make. I need that." Doesn't really go so well. That's a relationship that probably should have been broken up probably a year ago. Okay, but they held on too long. Well, in their own backyard, in the Crypto.com arena, just in the other locker room, is the Clippers saying, hey, look at Westbrook. Westbrook is the hot girl who every man wants a piece of, and won't get the message that she's bad news. Okay, it's my little analogy for you. Sorry. Russell Westbrook is killing the Clippers right now. And I don't know at what point they will realize that, or if they will ever do anything about it. And I don't think it's bizarre of an idea to cut ties with Russell Westbrook. You did it. You got the 14-day free trial. You're 0-5 with Russell Westbrook. Westbrook is 0-14 in his last 14 starts. Not saying the Lakers were a great team either. They weren't. But let's keep it real here. They moved him to the bench for a reason. Okay? They moved him to the bench for a reason. he's just not a high-level starter anymore. He's just, look, I think people get it twisted and translate any criticism of Westbrook as hate. It's not. It's really not. Westbrook is a stand-up dude. He's awesome. He's really fun. He's entertaining. He's entertaining as a player in interviews or as a player on the court, off the court. He's an awesome guy. I get it. We don't ever want to bash Russell Westbrook. I don't want to bash anybody. But he can be all of those things. He can even be a good individual player and still not contribute to winning. Both of those things can be true. And both of those things kind of are true. One more true than the other being that he does not contribute to winning. The Clippers in their 5 games with Russell Westbrook, you know what, small sample size, but guess what? We don't have a lot of time here. Okay, we've got about 20 games left in the season, and if you're the Clippers, you came into the season with high hopes, and you came into this Paul George and Kawhi Leonard era with even higher hopes. You have title aspirations. I'm not saying this is, I don't think any of us are putting a title or bust tag on this Clippers team because we don't expect that of them anymore. I think a lot of people who have made their preseason prediction are sticking to it and want to see them make it all the way to the finals and win those finals. But as constructed now, that's just an impossible reality to see. Without Russell Westbrook this season, the Clippers have a defensive rating of 114.1. That isn't like mind-blowing. It's not incredible. Oh my God, it's not world-shattering. But you know, it's fine. It's passable. If Leonard and George are available, that number is better. But they're not always available. With Russell Westbrook, that defensive rating jumps 8 points all the way up to 122.2. Now, that would be the worst in the NBA, being that San Antonio is at 119.8. If you are almost 2 or 3 points worse defensively than the worst team in the NBA in San Antonio, yeah, I think that's a problem. And you could say small sample size. You could say they're getting used to each other. You could say anything you want. Okay, right now the numbers are not lying, okay? They're losing games, all right? It's no coincidence that the highest scoring game ever took place in Westbrook's first appearance with the Clippers. And I also don't love this narrative that he was awesome in that game, okay? I know it went to double overtime, but having 7 turnovers is never a good look for my starting point guard, okay? Just throwing that out there. And I'm not trying to make this a bash Westbrook thing. I'm not. But we've gotten really cute about, it was never Westbrook's fault. It's never Westbrook's fault. And we get that in our head about certain guys, that it can never be their fault, that it can never be, they can never be a reason that a team is losing or underperforming. And it's just not a good way to think about basketball. It's just not, or any sport. If you know, it's just, look, it's not working for LA. It wasn't working for the other LA. It didn't work. It hasn't worked for Houston. It hasn't worked for Washington. Westbrook, at best right now, needs to be coming off the bench in a reduced role as a scoring guard who needs to play more efficiently. He just needs to be a guy who can play a little bit more efficiently. He's not efficient. He's turning the ball over at a high rate. He is not playing great defense. The best version of the Clippers features a lot more Kawhi and Paul George than it does Russell Westbrook. And I know you wanted to get Westbrook, so maybe you could take the load off of those two. Well, it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. And now you see a guy like Reggie Jackson who's really getting good run with Denver, and you're like, maybe the Clippers could use a guy like that. Well, about that. Look, basketball is not linear. It is not perfect. But I'm looking at the Clippers right now thinking, what was the idea in signing Russell Westbrook. It didn't work out with all of those other teams. You're not special. Ty Lue is a good coach. I don't think prime Phil Jackson would be able to coach Westbrook into... Westbrook with this team right now is like fitting the square peg into the round hole. It's just never going to work. Okay, and I'll come back here and eat my words. If they break off some huge run and Westbrook plays really good high-level basketball and he's efficient and they get the defense under control, awesome. Cool, great, I'm here for it. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening, and it's just a common case of just all too predictable. We're going to stay out west. Team that's doing a little bit better than the Clippers, although that may not remain the case for much longer. The Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies currently hold the 2 seed in the West. It is March 5th. Morant is slated to miss at least the next 2 games. Dillon Brooks is slated to miss the next game. He got that 16th technical foul. Good. Go ahead and get that one out of the way before the playoffs. Good idea. And Brandon Clark is going to miss the rest of the season. Pretty bad, 6 hours of news for the Grizzlies. All of that stuff came out within a few hours. And it's kind of laughable, all of it except for the Brandon Clark injury. Nobody's rooting for a player to get hurt, especially a player, Brandon Clark was really good for Memphis, and Memphis is kind of struggling with front court depth all of a sudden. They were already missing Steven Adams, and now, Adams should be back soon, but Brandon Clark missing extended time, really missing the whole season. You hope he's back by next year, although it's a torn Achilles, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, now Memphis all of a sudden goes from being kind of deep to being really thin. And it's a shame, the Ja Morant stuff. I'm not going to personally speculate on it too much, but if we just review what's happened recently. Yeah. The most glaring of which was the police report of Ja Morant, physically assaulting a 17-year-old boy and then brandishing a gun. And that was a police report. Make what you want of it. It's just, I'm not saying this, that, or the other. It's just something that came out and it was a big deal. And I don't like that the NBA almost, I felt like we were trying to get through these 3-hour broadcasts with Grizzlies games and just trying to gloss over it and just act like it never happened. But now we are talking about it. And, I think it's I think it's good. We cannot just act as though these things aren't happening. I think it was a month ago now, Ja Morant's buddies after a game against the Pacers. I guess there was it was an NBA game, so there's always going to be some pushing, some shoving, some heated exchanges, but they took it too far. And there was allegedly they were pointing red lasers into the team bus and insinuating that they may have had guns. There was an investigation. They couldn't find anything. Okay, whatever. Move on. Not really as big of a deal as the other things, but the screaming match with Shannon Sharpe in the middle of a game, I don't think that it really speaks to any one player. It's not really, it doesn't really fall too terribly much on Ja, but it's just a lack of maturity. It's just a lack of maturity, a lack of poise. You speak so highly of your team and you're so confident, and that's fine. You're fine in the West. That's fine. But you're not going to make it anywhere in this league if you're so easily rattled and you're out there picking fights with fans. I know Shannon Sharpe is a talking head, right? He's a big deal in our national media. And I'm sure I don't watch Undisputed, but I'm sure he's had some negative things to say about the Grizzlies. That's just, to me, that's just a terrible look to, in the middle of the game, have a screaming match. It's a bad look on Shannon Sharpe too, a grown man who's out there screaming at these guys. And then he gets to stay in the game. That was a whole nother thing, whatever. Just immaturity. And if you're Ja Morant, you're the best player in this team. You're one of the best players in this league, right? You're one of the 15 best players in this league. You're a superstar. You've got your own shoe. You're a brand ambassador for Nike and the NBA. You need to be the leader of that locker room, even if you're 23 years old. Okay. You need to be, you're going to be held accountable for your actions. And those guys, Dylan Brooks and Jaren Jackson and all those young players, are going to follow your lead. And if you set a negative example, they're going to follow in your footsteps. So that was just a bad look. And it was the one thing that's happened that was out in the open for all of us to see. And it was just a bad look. There was this report that Ja got into it with a mall security guard. We didn't really get too much on that. I didn't read too much into it. I'm just saying, like, these little off the court altercations can't keep happening. You know, you're an NBA superstar. Why are you even out at a mall? Okay, what are you even doing? Okay, nothing good could really come of it. And then, of course, 2 nights ago, after the Nuggets loss, which there's a couple things here. For one, let's just pretend the gun's not even there. I'm going to say it kind of looks like he's intoxicated at a club, super late night, on the road in another city. You just got handed a big loss on national TV. You're speaking so confidently of yourself and of your team, and hours later you're going crazy, partying it up in a strip club, taking live video in front of topless women and doing just reckless. It's just reckless. It's just reckless. And this is the gun aside. I just don't want to see that. If I'm a Grizzlies fan, I don't want to see it. If I'm an NBA fan, I don't want to see it. Okay. It's just ridiculous. It's just reckless activity. It's not somebody I would trust my entire franchise to. For Memphis, they've already done so. And so while I'm hoping he can turn this around, and while everybody's hoping he turns this around, and I think he's going to, I think the other night was big. And the fact that he can now maybe catch this, reel it back in. Hey, I've gotten way out of line. I need to come back down to earth, chill out, and just kind of, it's just ridiculous. And then we bring in the gun, and we're on Instagram Live hours after a loss in another city, at a nightclub, at a strip club, brandishing a gun, going crazy, acting like there is no care in the world for anything outside of this moment in the strip club. Like, I'm not saying NBA guys don't party. I'm not saying NBA guys don't do this, that, or the other. I'm a James Harden fan. Of course, I know. But you don't see other guys doing this type of reckless activity, and they're not advertising it, at least, and then the gun is just next level. I mean, amidst all this news that's swirling you, especially this police report with this 17-year-old kid. I mean, come on. Like, what are you thinking? And he's not. The simple thing is, Ja Morant's extremely smart, right? He's just not thinking. He's in another world right now. And it was really disappointing as a fan to see that. I mean, you don't want to see anybody do that, but this is one of the league's most talented, most special players. And, you just don't want to see that. Jalen Rose did a really good segment last night on it. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. A lot of guys have spoken on it. Obviously, Gilbert Arenas has spoken on it. Gilbert Arenas has I think a pretty poor take on it. I mean, it's almost like condoning this behavior, and it's just not good. Paul Pierce had some tweets about it. I get it, but those guys weren't out there, on social media waving guns, That is like the final level of this that really is it's too much. Even for the NBA, like, the police report wasn't a big enough deal to get a suspension. None of it was a big enough deal for them to even entertain the idea that they could sit Ja Morant. Well, that time has come. He's now going to miss the next 2 games at least he issued a statement, whether, take that what you will, that he's going to take some time away. I don't know what that means, whether that's those 2 games or it's a week or it's 2 weeks, who knows. Being that Memphis is wildly competitive and trying to make a pretty serious playoff push this year, I don't think it'll be too terribly long. That being said, I don't really know what to make of the Grizzlies without Ja Morant, right? Since the start of the 2021-22 season, there are 24 wins to 10 losses without Ja Morant. They're a pretty damn good basketball team, even without Ja Morant. Now, I'm not pushing the idea that Ja Morant's not valuable, that he doesn't need to be out there for them to play at their best. He does. This team will really be looking for his offense when he's not out there. But the fact of the matter is, can they make it through a week without him? Can they make it through 2 weeks without him? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, the fact is they lost Brandon Clark. They don't have Steven Adams. Maybe they're a little bit more thin than they usually were in those games without him. But in the games he has not been made available, they've been, I'm not going to say just fine, but they've been okay. So I don't really know what to make of it. Brandon Clark, I think, is a pretty big loss for them. Defensive rating with him on the floor is 108.2. Now, defensive rating for individual players, I don't get too high on, so I'm not going to parade up and down over that number. It is a great number, but you have to think about if he's sharing the floor with Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson on the, then that number is going to be really good. But for a guy coming off the bench, he's really a special player, brings them just a little bit of punch off the bench. And like I said, without Adams, their depth now is looking a little bit questionable. I'm going to stay out west. I'm going to hit resume on this Mavericks Suns game. We're going to watch the closeout of it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it because I think it is, I think there's a chance, I think if the playoffs started today, we may even see them in a playoff series. But nonetheless, we're going to watch that, and then we'll have a little live reaction to it. So that'll be fun. The Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks has come to a close, and Dallas had Luka and Kyrie combined for 64 points, right? Dallas made 15 more free throws than the Suns. Dallas's bench outperformed the Suns' bench. They shot better from 3. Dallas did. None of it matters. The Suns ended up taking this game, and Kevin Durant was phenomenal, right? 37 points on only 17 shots. He goes 12 for 17 in 40 minutes of play, which he leads the Suns in minutes. And you go into this game and, he's coming off the injury and you thought maybe there'd be a minutes restriction. No, he's 100% ready to go. And he was proud to play those minutes. He was excited to be on this team, excited to be playing meaningful, winning basketball with the Phoenix Suns. Durant was stellar. Booker was awesome. Booker is really thriving in this environment with Kevin Durant. Booker himself he was just 1 point behind Durant. He had 36 to go with 10 assists, mind you. So Booker is really seeing the ball a ton and making great decisions. He did it all day. He made great decisions all day long. They were plus 17 with Booker on the floor. He was just spectacular. I'm not really sure what to make of Chris Paul right now. He goes out and does 11, 6 and 6. Only takes 9 shots, which I think is going to be kind of the norm going forward with Chris Paul. Josh Okogie took 13 shots to DeAndre Ayton's 6 and Chris Paul's 9. So make of that what you will. Ayton kind of goes away after the first quarter. He has a huge first quarter and then kind of dissipates, starts to make a little bit of noise with the rebounding, and gets to the line towards the end of the game. But the story of the day was Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Those two are two of the best one-on-one players in the NBA. and they are flowing so cohesively right now. They're only 3 games in, and it looks like they played an entire career together. So it's pretty terrifying. It's pretty terrifying. They didn't get to the line that much today. You expect that to probably change going forward, but you're loving what you're seeing from the Suns. If you're on this Suns bandwagon, you are loving what you're getting from them. Durant, obviously, is going to be a seamless fit on both sides of the floor. Just is. He's just the easiest superstar to play with in the entire NBA. We've seen him now move situations several times, at his own demand, and it's a fit everywhere. Playing with Kyrie and Harden, playing with Kyrie, playing with Curry, playing with Westbrook, playing now with Devin Booker. It's just seamless. We all knew it would be. There's not a single hitch in their step. They're awesome. They're 3-0 with him, and I'm still not crowning the champs. Today was a big step forward for them, though, to play in a playoff type atmosphere against superstar level players in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and to fight to the end, because Dallas led for much of that second half. And like I said, didn't matter because at the end of the day, it was Phoenix that had guys who they were going to get their shots. And a big story here is, breaking news, Dallas still can't defend. Although they looked better today. They were not, you see Booker and Durant end up with, almost 70 points combined, and you don't really, you're like, huh? But they did. They at least tried to make things harder for them. The effort was there. The effort was there from Dallas. And effort's just not going to be enough against a team like Phoenix. Okay? It's just not going to be enough. Phoenix was incredible. Dallas was awesome. Dallas wins this game with this level of effort and this level of shot making. They win this game against most any other team in the league the way they played today. But Phoenix is not just any other team in the league. They are the Phoenix Suns, now headlined by Kevin Durant. So, yeah, not even too little too late, because like I said, Dallas was leading most of the second half, and then you even get the shot at the end with Luka. Luka bullies Okogie. Is it a push off? Is it an offensive foul? I don't know. Booker thought so much so that he and Doncic get in each other's faces, which that's a fun little rivalry. I mean, I know nobody's ever taking Booker's side on Twitter. Like every time these two square off, it's like, oh, Luka's Booker's daddy, and obviously Luka is one of the few best players in the entire NBA, and Booker's knocking on that door, right? He's probably just outside that top tier, but the way he's been playing as of late, I mean, it's just been incredible to watch. But yeah, those two get into it, and Luka wants that shot back, no doubt. The bunny layup. I mean, Okogie made stuff hard for him today. I think Luka finished 8 for 21 from the field. Not an ideal shooting performance for Luka Doncic, but he missed some easy ones early and often. And then that last shot, you're right there at the cup and just couldn't finish it. So it's tough. Dallas is going to want that one back. But that's the thing. They were in this game, but I'm just wary of them against teams at their level or a little bit better, because I think other teams are just going to defend better. I think Dallas is still a little too predictable. The thing is, with Phoenix, they have that two-headed monster with Booker and Durant, and then Chris Paul when he chips in. And Ayton is also, when Ayton's on, and he's really important for them. But it's just like Dallas, right? They only had 15 assists today, right? A lot of their shots are coming unassisted, ISO ball. My turn, your turn, Luka and Kyrie back and forth, hot potato. That's just not the case with Phoenix. Like I said, it looks like they've been playing together for years. The way that they are cohesively flowing, Looks like they've played together for years. So make of that what you will. They're awesome and it's scary, and it doesn't really matter that they're a little thin on the bench because they pull Ish Wainwright out of nowhere, who goes 4 for 6, all threes, all cash, and Josh Okogie has stepped up. He looks like he's going to be that starter for the remainder of the season. He's like they're going to want him to be like Mikal Bridges light, like Mikal Bridges 20 light version though. And he kind of is that. He's a really good defensive player. He makes life hard for guys like Kyrie and Luka. Those guys are still going to get their baskets, but Luka, especially today, did struggle shooting from the field. So, man, Phoenix, it's going well. It's going well so far. We're going to see how it keeps up. You hope those guys can stay healthy, because if they do, they could run. They could run the entire Western Conference in the playoffs. Who knows? A Suns-Celtics finals would be really juicy, really fun. I would greatly love to see that, but there's still a lot of time left, and I don't think it's ideal that Durant plays 40 minutes every night. And they did need that. They did need him to play all those minutes. So, but every night you're not going to play against Luka and Kyrie too. So I think they're going to get some easy ones coming down the chute here. And they're going to need to kind of recalibrate, get Durant some rest, even Booker, because Booker missed a ton of time. So you're going to want to just be careful with your guys, because for Phoenix, I think it's no doubt that they're going to be in the playoffs, obviously, but it's about maintaining their health through that stretch, because, like I said, that's my biggest concern with Phoenix is at the time of the trade, your 3 top guys were in and out of the lineup, and now that they're all here, it looks awesome. It's spectacular, but you got to maintain that going forward. That being said, it was an awesome way to start the day. Now we got Steph Curry in his first game back against the Lakers. The Lakers without LeBron, without Russell. It is what it is. The Lakers are just probably not going to make the playoffs, man, or the play-in tournament. They're just probably not. And Golden State needs every win they can get, because they're going to want to be gelling by come postseason. They're going to want to try to fight for home court. I think they're in the 6th spot. So I don't know. You're going to also, battling with, it's a whole conglomerate in the middle of the East, or in the West rather. You have Denver, and then you have Memphis, and then it's like, blah. Everybody mixes together. So I can sit here and say that they're a 6th seed or a 7th seed. It doesn't really matter. Everybody's within a few games of one another. So it's going to be interesting to see that race to this final stretch in the West, because it's really tight out there. And, everybody's going to be fighting and vying for that playoff position. But we've got a great slate of games coming up. I will not be covering those, at least on this podcast. I will be back on the mic later to talk some Boston sports, namely the Celtics. We're going to record. Me and Ryan are going to record on the Splash podcast feed after the Celtics-Knicks game tonight. So I'm greatly looking forward to that. If you enjoyed today's episode, thank you for listening, at least this far. Thank you so much. Like I said, the listens are there, and I'm really, really happy to see that. I think that's due to TikTok. So if you're not on TikTok yet, go follow. And if you're not on the YouTube yet, go follow. Make sure you just subscribe on your preferred podcast feed. We are available everywhere. I had to fight for that. I had to get us on every single streaming feed. But really, really excited to see where the show is going. Had fun with this one. Now, I'm going to go get some lunch. I'm going to lock in, and I'm going to watch some basketball. Just sit on the couch, enjoy the day. Knicks Celtics tonight. I'm giddy. I got my new Tatum jersey over there. I'm going to go put it on, and I'm just going to be a fan for the rest of the day. So, really fun stuff. Really fun playoff style matchups all weekend with, we started with Milwaukee and Philly, and now we have had Phoenix and Dallas, and we got more stuff coming down the chute today. So thank you so much for listening. This was really fun. See you on the next episode.